first met Jerry when I was 9 years old, actually, because he taught at a prep school in Williamstown, Massachusetts, where I'm from. And when I got my very first cello, the first day that I brought it home, I was so excited I tried to tune it myself, and I broke the D string. And so my mom took me to Jerry's house, and he changed the D string on my cello for me. And I've known him basically my whole life. And when it came time for me to come to music camp, my parents called up Jerry and asked about Kinhaven because they knew he was at this place. And he said, oh, send him up. And I spent 3 summers here, and it left a huge mark on me. And his imprint is all over the place.
Well, I came here as a student when I was a kid, and I really remembered Jerry from chorus, and I thought he was kind of terrifying. And I remember he had these humongous bare feet, and he was always talking about how we should go barefoot to develop the soles of our feet. I wasn't too sure about it at the time, but as an adult, I've come to see that it's actually a good idea and kind of fun to do at Kinhaven.
I can picture sitting in the cello section when I was 16 years old, playing a Tchaikovsky symphony, and I remember exactly what his bare feet looked like on the podium.
Jerry was Kinhaven when I was a student. He was the executive director, conducted all the orchestras, the chamber orchestra, chorus, chamber choir. So his presence was so deeply felt in every way. When I was a student, the D's were still living up in the main house, and they were at the end of their lives. It was quite near the end. And one of the things that Jerry did every summer was gather the entire community, not just the students, but also the faculty and the activity staff, and brought us to the back door of the main house. And we would, as a community, all sing to them. And we would end with "Now All the Woods Are Sleeping," and you could see in Mr. D's eyes how powerful and meaningful it was that Jerry had gathered us together and brought us there. For me, one of the things that Kinhaven has always been the thing that I took from Kinhaven that felt very much to me like Jerry's specific carrying forward of the D's legacy and burnishing it with his own sort of spirit was this idea that music is not a thing you do, but a thing you live. That everywhere you turn at Kinhaven, there's music happening. And to me, what he did by bringing us together to sing for the D's was to express that in the most beautiful and powerful way possible. That here we were, young musicians in the full, irrepressible joy of making music together. And we were singing. And the faculty and Jerry, who were in their middle age and their maturity and the sort of the prime of their lives as both musicians and people, they were singing. And the D's, who are at the end of their lives, were listening to this beautiful music. And for all of us, it was carrying us forward in our lives from the beginnings to the end. And to me, it was a way for Jerry to communicate this very powerful lesson to all of us that loving music and giving ourselves to it and bringing it into us in every way was a gift that allowed us to have meaning in our lives from the beginning to the end. And I remember that look in Mr. D's eyes saying everything that could be said about the importance and beauty of music.
Well, I met Jerry for the first time 20 years ago when he hired me sight unseen to teach trombone here. And as soon as I got here, I knew that this was going to be somebody that not only I looked up to, but that we were going to be friends. He got up at the first meal, and as soon as he stood up, I saw all of the ingredients that make a great leader, quite frankly. He had this amazing charisma. The students were all eyes and ears on him, and he mixed leadership with a really fantastic sense of humor. He could go from being wise to having a 12-year-old sense of humor in about 12 seconds flat, and I love that about him.
His good nature and the way that he truly emanated peace and love for this place. He was just such a sweet and caring man, and that's something that inspires me.
One of the first things that struck me about Jerry was how comfortable and at ease he was with just being.
He was this great mixture of great seriousness as a musician, but also he loved to have fun too. And it was this incredible blend, which is something that I have kept with me, my whole life. That the fact that working hard, being serious about what you're doing, about your art, about your studies, that's not incompatible with also enjoying life and having a good time.
The thing that I, in those early years, loved about Jerry, and loved to the day he left us, is his camaraderie with the faculty and the staff. I always felt like I could talk to him about anything. he'd have these like town hall meetings with the whole student body and the faculty, and if there was an issue that would come up, he would pull everybody together to discuss. And it was quite astounding to see how he would let the students speak and not interrupt them and not correct them, just let them have the conversation.
Jerry was often at his best at moments of greatest stress and crisis. And at those times, Jerry was just incredible. He was calm, but in command at the same time. He could get people to look at a problem, understand what the issues are, come to a kind of a feeling of togetherness at the end, and bring people around to a positive way of looking at pretty much every problem.
The one thing I remember most, I think, about Jerry is just he was admired so much and loved so much by the students because he cared so much about the music and the students that he would be really honest with them about a performance or their behavior, could really lay down on them sometimes, really harshly. And yet, I don't think there was a kid who didn't love Jerry. I mean, he was just so loved by all the students.
Being a musician at Kinhaven for me was the greatest joy when I was a kid. But I was also an irrepressible little rascal and couldn't control myself pretty much any time. And you can check with the people who taught me who are still here, and they will confirm this fact. But one summer, I remember I was the concertmaster for a performance of Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony. And we were in the middle of rehearsals, probably Wednesday or Thursday of the week, and I had just been so badly behaved all week, sitting there at the front of the orchestra, supposedly leading the orchestra, but what really just leading them astray. And Jerry would kind of look down at me with this kind of, with those eyebrows and, the beard, and look at me like... But instead of just reaming me out or, calling me to task in front of the whole orchestra, instead, later in the week, he pulled me aside at some point. He found me walking up by the barn, and he said to me, "Simon, I know how much irrepressible energy you have, but right now you're taking all that energy and you're you're undermining what we're doing with all this swirling energy. And your job as a leader of the orchestra, your job as sitting concertmaster is to take that energy and make it creative, generate it towards what we're doing as opposed to away." And of course, being 15, I was like, sure. But in retrospect, I remember so vividly what a powerful lesson that was to me, what an insight that was into how to be a musician. He was saying, take all that, that's who you are, take it and make it beautiful, make it creative, give it to the music, send it in the direction of creativity and productivity and positivity, and that's been my approach to conducting, my entire career.
Jerry was really just an incredible musician and such a positive personality that it was sometimes easy to lose track of the fact that Jerry, who could make incredibly funny jokes and tell really hysterical stories, you might forget that Jerry was actually a really consummate musician. He was really the best of the best. He had this incredible way of teaching music and the deeper aspects of a particular piece in a way that the performance was always about the best that you could get with a particular group.
He did have a great sense of humor, but it was a sophisticated sense of humor. Some of my greatest memories of Jerry would be when we were rehearsing Baroque music. He would sit down and in the middle of a rehearsal, if we took a break and we stopped, he would start improvising on the harpsichord. The most clever and hysterically funny improvisations that you ever heard. Of course, you wouldn't get the jokes if you weren't a well-educated musician.
I will always remember Jerry coming in always towards the end of our Mendelssohn Octet rehearsal during staff week to prepare for opening night. And he would sit there and he would listen and he would love it so much. And every time we finished, he would chuckle and laugh and cackle the way only Jerry Bidlack could do. And we knew the summer was about to start when Jerry cackled.
He was the real deal, but he also had this very funny and very entertaining personality. And he was great in front of a group of kids. He was a good speaker. He was very organized in terms of explaining to the students what Kinhaven was, what they should expect to get out of Kinhaven, what they needed to think about in terms of living in a community here in a musical and meaningful way with each other. And he did it in a very graceful and gracious way.
Trusting young people, singing, making music part of life all day long, every day. Singing at meals, singing on the hill, interacting with respect and grace, and it's sort of in everything we do here. And I think it's very much from him and from the Dushkins before him, and now carried on by Tony and Debbie.
Jerry was a mean poker player. There was nothing better than sitting there watching him deal the cards while at the same time telling the rules of the game, and by the time you lost all your money to him, you thought you understood the rules. And that was just a baptism by fire that anyone who wanted to play poker on a Monday or Thursday night had to go through, and we loved that.
I think some of my fondest memories of Jerry are at the poker table. He was hilarious, a great poker player, very great faker and bluffer, but he was always really fun to play with. And so some of my most joyous moments were at the poker table with him.
I took him golfing once. My favorite story was we were playing a par 3 hole somewhere in Rutland. He couldn't see, so I had to watch the ball for him. He hit the ball from about 100 yards out, and it went straight into the forest. We thought it was gone. We heard a knock, and the next thing you know, it knocked into the green, into the hole. It was the best shot and the worst shot that I've ever seen at the same time by Jerry Bidlack.
It's hard for me to think of someone who was so important to me and been my mentor and my friend for 35 years and sum it up in a couple of stories. But I have to say that Jerry managed to be both of those things. He was an incredible inspiration to me when I first came here. And he was kind of like a father figure and a friend at the same time.
Throughout the years, I got to know Jerry more when I joined Kinhaven faculty, and he became like a second family to me. Just remember, his laugh, his mischievousness, and he's always good-natured no matter what. I never saw him lose his temper or get angry.
Jerry had this way of making everything positive and happy and enjoyable and serious at the same time.
I think there is a spirit of thinking about people as people, not just players of instruments or musicians, but holistic people, and I think that's still very much a part of Kinhaven.
As far as his legacy is concerned, I think that he set up this ecosystem here at Kinhaven that allows me and my wife to create a student-centered environment where all of the children, the faculty, and the staff for that matter, get to experience the best version of themselves by the end of 6 weeks together. And that is the most magical thing possible. That's what he left here. That's what he left for me. That's what I remember about him. His kindness, his charm, his humor, and his desire to just always have a good time is something that I'll never forget.
He will be sorely missed. He was a great spirit here at Kinhaven, and I think he left his imprint that even though people will come that will not know who he was, will have an experience of what he helped set in motion here.